Time now for the International Press Review with Elena Casas. Elena, thanks very much for joining us. Tell us what the international reaction has been in the press to the Toulouse shooting that we've been talking so much about.
Well, let's go first to Israel, whereas Haaretz reports a lot of politicians there have said, obviously, that they regret enormously what happened yesterday in Toulouse and that they want security to be stepped up to protect Jews and Jewish schools and institutions in France. A number of politicians there, as the paper reports, have also said that the language, the discourse used in the French presidential campaign may have something to do with what happened yesterday. They've gone rather further than the French press have in saying, of course, there had already been complaints from the chief rabbi here in France about what was said by François Fillon about halal and kosher meat. He accused the Prime Minister, when he said that a couple of weeks ago, of stigmatising the Jewish community. So Haaretz says that the language used in the presidential campaign was already creating an environment that wasn't very welcoming for French Jews, and that they may then, of course, now feel more persecuted after the shooting. The Jerusalem Post goes further. They accuse French politicians of using anti-ethnic minority kind of rhetoric. They say the inflammatory language in this presidential campaign must be toned down if we don't want to see further incidents like this occurring. And the British newspaper, The Independent, has done a strong front page on this. France in grief, it says, and a similar photo of what we saw on Le Parisien of a child being comforted outside of that school in Toulouse. Inside, they make an even more direct link than the French press between Sarkozy's election campaign and what happened yesterday, saying that he has appropriated the language and the clothes of the far right in order to win over their voters, and thus he's created an unpleasant political climate. And if it turns out this killing was the work of a far-right extremist, the paper says, then we should hope the discourse of Nicolas Sarkozy's campaign changes appropriately and that we don't continue to hear very far-right statements from him.
Moving on to some of the rest of the world's news, you've also been looking at Syria, Elena.
Yes, Lebanese paper L'Orient Le Jour says on its front page that the fighting reached Damascus yesterday. Of course, the capital has largely been spared a lot of the violence that happened during the conflict, but it was the scene of shootings yesterday between opposition activists and the military. They also are talking about Russia, which seems to be conducting a rather contradictory policy. We've heard reports that a Russian anti-terrorist battalion arrived in Syria yesterday, while at the same time the Syrian foreign minister issued a call in Moscow jointly with the International Committee of the Red Cross for a humanitarian truce to allow some wounded to get out of war zones and so on. So what exactly is going on with Russian policy? The Independent reports that the amount of arms bought by Syria from Russia has gone up 600% in the last 5 years. 72% of all their arms are coming from Russia. So you can clearly see that financially this is very important to the Russian arms industry, at least their relationship with Syria. But as the Moscow Times analyses today, they're keen not to become too much international pariahs on the Syria issue, hence this call for a ceasefire jointly with the Red Cross. They're trying not to become too internationally isolated, but at the same time their relationship with Syria remains very strategically important to Russia, hence the anti-terrorist battalion that arrived yesterday.
Now, there have also been some more leaked documents revealing more about Assad's role in the crackdown.
Yes, these are in The Guardian. Of course, last week they got hold of an extraordinary cache of his personal emails. This week it's some documents that have been leaked by a Syrian defector who'd worked in the intelligence agency. These are less personal. These are more to do with military deployments, where exactly battalions are sent to block squares and main roads and so on to stop people from protesting. But what they do show is that Assad apparently personally signs off measures against protesters, including detaining them without trial, those who are caught in illegal protests. So we can see his personal role there, his signature on these documents.
Elena Casas, so the look at the international press. Thanks very much indeed. That was the International Press Review.